this is Sue again with Get Sold, and just want to give you some updates. So I'm still in Cali, so I don't have my backdrop or anything, which is probably just fine. So I did my first pilot video with Soul 2K this morning, and as it turned out, we were getting some solar flares, and my good friend Ingrid said, probably not a good day to start something new. Okay, so it's going to be kind of a dry run anyways to see what kind of questions I could ask Soul 2K and see how much he would expound on them, and to just kind of figure out our format and stuff. So one of the questions I asked him, which I kind of learned about a long time ago, but it's kind of important, about soul contracts. Many years ago, I was learning different modalities in spirituality. And one of the things I knew without knowing was what soul contracts were. When people come into your life and there's a certain role they must play, and even though it could go against everything that everyone knows in your world, somehow you know that that person is supposed to be there, or an event, or an experience. But I'm going to specifically talk about people for a minute, because in my life, I've had a lot of, let's say, unplanned visitors in my life that were pretty significant, that I was either there to help them or they were there to help me. And the reason it's important to kind of see it from that perspective is because you can feel when life events happen to you or people do things to you, you can feel like a victim. You can feel like they're being done to you. But to understand soul contracts means taking responsibility for your own life and for your own outcome. And we kind of don't really know how to do that. It's easier to blame, to judge, to push it off on somebody else than seeing the mirror that they're holding up for us. It's really hard if you get a lot of these people in your life. I've had a few. The last one that lasted for over 10 years was a karmic twin flame situation. And it just dragged on and on and on. And it was very, very difficult because that person was there to pull up all of my triggers, the ones I didn't want to see, I didn't want to deal with, but I knew it was time. And so somebody that's a soul contract for you can play many different roles. They can be the biggest thorn in your side, or they can be the biggest love of your life, or they can be somewhere in between. They can be related to you, not related to you. Somebody that you'll have in your life for a short time, for a long time, but some degree of time until you learn a lesson. I always like to think it's a two-way street, but with this last karmic one, I have to believe that it was mostly me, because this other person wasn't ready to grow in the way that I needed to. And sometimes that often requires separating, and that's really hard. It's also hard with soul contracts with people in your life that maybe if you don't understand why they're there, sometimes it can also be a thorn in other people's sides who, like for instance, if it's a friend that other people are saying, hey, that person's not good for you, look, you're changing and this and that, but they're there to show you what you need to fix inside. So soul contracts work in many different ways. If you've had past lives with people and you were not able to balance that lifetime, then you will ask for that same person or that same soul to come back in again and repeat the lesson until you take full responsibility. So past lifetimes can be, if it's somebody that you recognize in this lifetime, you're like, I feel like I know you, I feel like I know you, then you do. And depending on what role they're playing for you in this lifetime will determine what kind of lessons that you need to learn, or that perhaps you're teaching them, you're working with them on. But I've had so many of these difficult situations that I was blessed to kind of find out early on what a soul contract was. Carolyn Miss wrote a really good book about soul contracts, so if you're looking to understand more. The more you understand about what's really going on, the more you can self-heal. You can stop being a victim if you feel like you are one, which our life experiences, if we've chosen that as an archetype, victimization, I've chosen that one and quite a few others to get through in this lifetime. So when you understand a soul contract, it can make life a bit easier if you're willing to accept the responsibility for it. Oftentimes these soul contracts will be a mirror to what inner things you have going on and the things that your soul is asking you to repair, to love through, to heal from. And so a lot of times they'll actually nag you, like they'll stay with you, like these soul contract people will just keep at you. It can be in the form of agitating you. If it's to make you happy, then maybe that makes you stay in the relationship until you finally get to that point where you're starting to see things about yourself that you need to fix. If you feel a certain way around somebody and it doesn't make you feel good, like around this karmic twin flame person, I didn't like who I was, but it was because I had a lot of things to clear and to heal, and only that person could really bring it home the way that person did. But certainly it didn't feel good most of the time because it was stuff I didn't want to see in myself. I didn't want to see the things that I had to fix, that maybe I had caused harm to this person in other lifetimes. But when you do go down that road of taking accountability, taking self-responsibility, life does tend to get a little easier for you, because then when you learn the lesson, a lot of times you'll get a new gift. You'll get some type of reward, if you will, for doing your work. And that's what we call doing your work, is being accountable for the way you are, for the way you act, but also loving yourself, also learning that with that accountability, it was all meant for a reason. Whether you did something to somebody in another lifetime that you have to pay back karmically, is all by agreement. It's all by agreement. So we aren't victims. We may take on those roles to feel it for the collective consciousness, but in the end we clear it so that we can all experience what's past the tough stuff, what's past the pain and the sorrow and all the ugly emotions that we really don't want to feel but are being forced to on one level or another. So as soon as you acknowledge what that might be, you ever ask yourself, geez, why is this person in my life? Why do I feel this way around him? Why, in a twin flame situation, you may be extraordinarily attracted to that person for different things, different reasons or whatever, and that is there to make sure that you do your work. And then when your work is done, even if it ends on a bad note, it's really not a bad note. It's there to tell you that it's done. And that's why we lose people in our lives many times, is that your work is done. And if you two agree to maintain a friendship or some kind of relationship or whatever it may be, then it's outside of the contract, and that's up to you, So I guess that's what I have to say about soul contracts, that it literally, to me anyways, makes a difference on where you go in your life as far as progress. Like, I had found out through a lot of my learning that I was living, this was my 33rd lifetime of victimization, meaning that in 33 other lifetimes I had done terrible things to other people. So I was paying that back now. And then I decided that I had taken on so much in this lifetime, I couldn't continue with the victimization role. What happened to me as a kid, growing up, still bringing it into adulthood, that I felt like a victim. So I wanted that done. So I had a very elevated friend, my friend Ingrid, who's an amazing gift, and she was able to help me cancel that contract and say, I've learned my lesson. I've learned from these other lifetimes what I did, what I needed to atone for, to forgive, to ask for forgiveness. and ultimately to love myself through that ugliness. And why do we do it? Why do we make these soul contracts? Because somewhere out there, before we come here into a body, we agree for the collective and for Creator Source what experiences we're going to have. And that, knowing that, makes it way better than thinking that you're running around in this lifetime in just chaos and no accountability and no understanding of what's really happening physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. You know, I would rather learn the different modalities, learn what's really happening so that I can have a better life in the end, because I really, really am tired of suffering. So it may be work to get to that point, but I have to believe that after a certain period of time, when this work is done, then you do get to play and you do get to have fun, and you do get to reap the rewards of the work. So thank you for joining me today, and I thank you, and thank you, and love you all, and be good, be well, be whatever you need to be.